Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It feels like it's been a long time for me, but here we are. I think the last, meaningful amount of time that I spent in this gym was me filming all of our exercise demonstrations for our new app. So I feel like after doing something like that, and if any of you guys have ever filmed a library before, it's so exhausting. So I'm like, I don't need to train for the rest of the year. We're good. But obviously that's not the case. So today we are back in the gym and I'm going to be doing a full body machine-based workout. Now this is something that I wouldn't usually do, but for those people that travel a lot, or maybe you're trying to work out perhaps in an apartment complex gym, or you've just run out of time to go to your gym, but something is better than nothing. So I wanted to go through, based on all the machines that we have here at Powerhouse Gym in Fort Lauderdale, what an appropriate workout is, how you can modify your training if you're short on time, but still have a really effective workout specifically for muscle hypertrophy. So I'm going to teach you a lot of stuff today, some different techniques, training intensities, all the things that can facilitate your goals and get you there as fast as possible. Okay guys, so I am going to be starting with some lower body movements. Now, I actually have recently put up a post that talks about exercise order. So there has been, over the years, a lot of talk about prioritizing your compound lifts, making sure that you absolutely have to do these first, yet very little context is provided when you hear some of these discussions. So what I actually posted about was a recent 2021 meta-analysis, which included about 11 studies, and they were observing exercise order and the impact that it had on either hypertrophy outcomes or strength-based outcomes. And what is interesting is that for hypertrophy specifically, you do not necessarily have to do those compound exercises first. So what was interesting about this was that for specifically muscle hypertrophy, the exercise order didn't matter. So whether you choose to do a compound exercise first or an isolation exercise, how that actually impacts your muscle growth matters very little. Now, that's not to say that you should just go out and do your triceps first and your biceps and then try and hit a compound deadlift or something at the end of your session, because you still want to go in and perform to a high standard. You want to make sure that the quality of those movements is at its best. So obviously the muscles that you care about most probably should be performed at the beginning of the session so that you've got a fresh set of legs if that's what you're trying to grow and you're feeling good, you're energized, and you're not waiting to the end of the set where you're actually feeling really fatigued. So whilst the exercise order is really important for strength, it's not actually as important for muscle growth. So I'm going to pop that study in the links for you if you guys want to check that out. I might even slap it on the screen here. But I'm going to start with this machine leg press because it's probably the best lower body exercise in this gym for machines. So I'm going to kind of get warmed up on the machine, as well as do some additional like mobility and hip stuff. I have been sitting so much lately that I feel like I must be like 100, or this must be what it feels like to be close to 100 years of age. So I'm probably going to do a little bit extra movement than what I would normally, just because I have been so sedentary lately working. So yeah, I'm going to start probably about 50% of what I plan to do for my working sets. And I'm going to do 5 reps, and then my second warm-up set will probably be 3 reps, and that'll be at about 75% of my working set, and then I'll probably jump in and do my first working set. So might as well get started. Something to consider when you're using one of these machines is that usually the last person that's been on there has probably moved the pins around. So again, thinking about like effectively training your muscles with a limited amount of time, which is typically what most of us have, it's a limited amount of time. If you only do partial range of motion, it's very likely it's going to take you longer to accumulate fatigue to actually signal your muscle to grow. So if, for example, I decided to, I don't know, do partials like this, which Granted, we've probably seen all those people in the gym doing this and you're like, God, mate, you're just doing half range. So your muscle is a continuation. It's just one length, right? So eventually, just doing partials, you will be able to fatigue the entire muscle, but it's going to take you a lot longer to get there. So if you are short on time, to me, it would make sense that we train full range of motion. So that's why I pulled this right into my ears. I am very flexible, so I want to make sure that that's on like the closest setting that I can, which feels really uncomfortable getting into it. But you can see here, like at the bottom, when I come all the way down, I've actually got full range of motion here. So this is the fastest route that's going to fatigue the intended muscle groups, which are my quads and my glutes. Whereas if I just do partials, I could, but I tell you what, that'd take me twice as long to fatigue my muscle. So all these people that are arguing about range of motion and somehow it's isolating one part of your muscle, it doesn't work like that. A muscle is one length, it's a continuation. So I think there are benefits to partial range of motion. Again, it's also just a different training technique that can add diversity to your program, but there's nothing magical about it. So I wanted to talk about that. Just some banded clams, some hip openers. You can do these standing, you can do them seated, you can do them on the floor. There's about a zillion ways to get hip abduction, which is all this move is. But again, for the same reasons that we do different exercise variations, we can do different mobility and warm-up variations. And I think when you've been training for such a long time, sometimes you just want something a little bit novel, and I haven't done these for a little while myself. So I actually got 2 bands here, just to make it a little bit more difficult. Now, my glute factory bands are probably a little bit, I guess, well, they have too much resistance. So I like the elastic ones for mobility for a warm-up, and then for an actual exercise, the resistance actually reduces your rep number. If I tried to do a working set with these for like any abduction movement, I'd probably have to do like 100 reps to get to failure. And again, that's not an efficient use of time. So it's not that you can't get, you know, a good workout in, it's just, that's why there's a hypertrophy rep range. So this would be the standing version. So you're just gonna roll your foot out to the side. So I wasn't counting, but I'd probably do like 2 sets of 15. So something that is really important, and I've had a couple of these conversations with some clients recently. They were just watching one of my YouTube videos, and they've kind of came in and had a confession session in our update. And they said, Holly, you know what, I was watching this and I don't think that I've been training, you know, hard enough, which I get it. You know, it's easy to come in, train distracted, you're thinking about something else that's going on, and you're not loading effectively. So it's so important that if you are trying to get muscle growth, you have to train close or near to failure. And you can do that a multitude of ways, whether it's heavy lifting with heavy loads and you're getting mechanical damage, or whether you use moderate to high reps and you're getting that metabolic byproduct accumulate in your muscle. Either way, you have to train close to failure. So that was pretty close. So I got like 2 more reps and then I would have been done. So next exercise I want to do on a machine is this glute kickback. Now, granted, it's not always an exercise that you're going to find in, like, I don't know, the Hilton Hotel and their gym. But I want to show you some exercise alternatives that you can do if you usually do this kind of movement, any kind of kickback. And I'll show you using some bands. So hopefully you guys carry, when you travel, some kind of a glute band, or you've got an ankle attachment. And if you don't have these things, guys, they're like both under 20 bucks and they will save you when you aren't in your normal gym environment. And let's be real, most of us aren't just living this perfect life where every single week you're doing the same thing and there's no disruptions. And if you are, I'm very jealous. So I'm going to start with a set here. I'm using this Cybex Glute Kickback. I'm going to do, I guess, a higher rep set today, only because I haven't done this movement for a little while and I don't want to load up too heavy and then end up injuring myself, because it still does load your spine a little bit just because of the position that you're in. So I'm going to opt for higher reps today, probably around 150 pounds, and then I'll see how that goes. So the other thing that I do with this exercise is I'm not using it the way that it is appearing. So most people you see leaning forwards like this, and then, you know, they're kicking back like so, which is fine, but you can see I've got quite a lordotic spine. So if I move my hair, you can see my back, I have quite an arch in my lower back. So when I kick up here, I end up being in more of a hyper extended position, which is actually just loading my erectors. So to combat that, what I actually do is I shift myself back a little bit. I've got this back foot on the ground, and then I'm getting into this like athletic position. Like I'm really focusing here on getting my core active, and the weight is very centered. So I feel really strong in this position compared to being open here with a really long extended spine. I'm not in a strong, you know, grounded position there. So sitting back, kicking up, and now I've eliminated a lot of that arch that I was feeling before, and I can get more extension with my glute. Before, in this position, that's as far as I can go. There's no more glute work, but I've got a lot more range of motion to give. So by sitting back, now my glute is extremely active like that. It's really completely flexed. Before it wasn't. So that's why I kind of modify this exercise a little bit, just to make it more specific. And again, thinking about full range of motion, I could do 15 reps here, but I'd probably have to load up a lot more to get to fatigue or failure than I will getting back here and really taking it through the full range of motion. So I hope that makes sense. If you guys have got questions about that, please feel free to leave me a comment in the comment section.
I'm still waiting. Evening fades into the dawn. The lights go out, but you don't come home. I'm still alone. I'm still waiting, 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 waiting. I'm still waiting, still waiting.
Alrighty guys, so that one was tough with a band. So you see people online arguing about bands are garbage, they're junk volume, you get nothing out of it, the load isn't heavy enough, and it is simply not true. So like I was saying before, you can fatigue your muscle effectively through multiple avenues. So this will require you to go to a significantly higher rep range to get to failure. And if you're an advanced athlete, someone like me that's been lifting for a really long time, then you might need to do 30 reps of donkey kicks, like I just demonstrated, for that exercise to be effective. Now, it might take you a little bit longer, but if that's all you've got access to, and you're traveling, I know I used to do a lot of traveling, we'd be overseas, seminaring, doing tours, and you didn't have a glamorous gym to go and train at, or even if there might have been one close by, like your schedule is back to back to back to back to back. And as a competitor, and I was competing as a pro at the time, you don't have a choice. It's not like you just go, oh, well, I won't do the session, I'll worry about that later. Or, you know, it might extend the time to you getting to your goals. As an athlete, when you've got a due date or a deadline or a meet date, you can't really waver. And that's a completely different mindset though to how I train now, because I'm not competing and, you know, training towards anything. So I'm a lot more gracious and I give myself a lot more empathy and freedom, because I don't need to be pushing 5 days a week anymore to maintain what I have. But if you're trying to build, then you do need to be consistent, and you do need to do a minimum set number per week per muscle group. And we know based on the research that that number needs to be for beginners somewhere between 10 and 15 sets per week per muscle group. And for more advanced athletes like myself, maybe you guys watching, you should really be pushing 25, even 30 sets if you're trying to make the most out of each individual training session. So I'd encourage you guys to go and look at your training split that you're doing, write down each of the muscle groups. In fact, I have a video on YouTube that specifically shows you how I create a program. And I'd love you to do the same. Go and see how many quad exercises you are doing, how many glute exercises, how many back, chest, shoulders, and then see if you're doing enough sets. And the minimum set number, again, for maintenance is probably about 10. And that's what I've been doing personally for the muscle groups that I don't care about. So for the last couple of years, I haven't done more than 10 sets in my back or my chest, and I cannot tell you the last time I pushed and tried to grow. And I have maintained it for the most part, and I think that's exciting. It means that you don't have to kill yourself and slug yourself forever. The hard work is in doing the building process, eating and having enough fuel to lay down that foundation to create new tissue. And then once you've got it, it's so much easier to maintain. And now, like me, I train 3 to 4 days a week, and I'm maintaining the muscle that I've worked years to get, and it's so freaking good. So that's really informative. I hope that that helps you. So don't feel like the bands are a waste or a joke, because they're frankly not. Now, the last exercise variation I want to show you, if you have access to a cable and you want to do that over a band, which is fine, all you need is your little ankle foot straps. Now, everyone keeps asking me, what are your straps? What are your straps? And I guess I haven't shown you. I'm actually going to start producing these really soon, and they'll go up on my website. But for now, you can go and support this brand. So this has been a really great product. Basically, your foot just sits in like so. You strap it in. And then this section here is what goes around the carabiner. So it gives you a little bit of foot support too, so that it doesn't slide up and down your ankle like some of the ones that don't have this support. You'll find them coming up and up and up and up, or they'll go down and dig into your foot. So this kind of has a steady place to sit. So for this exercise, you want to make sure that you get down again into this athletic stance. And the reason that I do this so often is it keeps you nice and centered, and that, I guess, weight distribution is coming from your core. You're not using like a really long moment arm where you're feeling really weak and lengthened and your spine is compromised. So I'm going to get down nice and low in this position here, and then I'm going to stay with a bent knee, and I want to stay in close enough that I can kind of have a little bit of a bend in my elbow. Again, the further away I am, the less tension I can create at my core. Here, I've got a good grip and I can stay tight. So see how I bend my knee when I come back in? This is a bent knee extension. So you'll see me in some of my programs, I'll do a straight leg kickback or a bent knee. So this is a hip extension. So getting down nice and low. And boy, that loads your glute. As opposed to doing a straight kickback, I would have to take the weight back down just because it compromises my lower back too much. So here, I'm a little bit taller. I'm still going to stay in close, but I'm just kicking back. But already, you can see that is just my erectors working. There's no glute in here. My range of motion is so limited because I've got such a lordotic spine. Like, that's it. So getting down lower, lengthening my spine. Now I've got way more range. So yeah, I do less straight leg kickbacks and more bent knee. All right, next exercise, I'm not sure yet. We're gonna walk over to the upper body section of the gym, and I'm gonna target my upper. So we've done 2 lower body exercises that are glutes and quads. Dominant, I'm less concerned about thickening or growing my hamstrings, though if I were somebody else trying to get more of an even workout, I probably would go and do a hamstring exercise using like a seated leg curl, or if you haven't got access in the gym to a machine, I would probably just stick to like a regular RDL or a split stance RDL just to kind of isolate my hamstrings a little bit more. I'm not going to do that today. So let's go over to the back here. And I think for me, shoulders, I want to hit those first while I'm feeling fresh. Again, exercise order, as we discussed at the beginning, less important for hypertrophy, more important for strength. So really, I could probably go and do chest, I could do back, I could still hit my shoulders. Again, the key thing that's going to help you with growth is getting to fatigue. And if you're tired, you're just going to get there faster. So anyways, while I'm feeling fresh, because I want to do the exercise that I like, I'm going to go and find something to do with my shoulders. Alrighty, so I found my machine, and I'd say that a lot of hotel gyms, apartment complex gyms usually have a shoulder machine. So we're in luck. One thing that I will say is just to be mindful of your feet positioning and the seat height. So unfortunately for me, I have really weird distorted portions. So I have like really long femurs. So my femur length will probably rival, I don't know, Guillermo, who's behind the camera. I'm not kidding. But my tib fib is probably like halfway up and meets his middle shin. So like I have really short distal portions, like same with this bone here. So like for me, this is really short, and so is my humerus. So anyway, I always face this difficulty where the seat for like a shoulder press, if I'm using dumbbells, I feel like I'm standing or like my feet are like dangling off the ground because it's so high. So in this particular case, I am going to try and find something that allows me to sit at a right angle. However, that sometimes will compromise the muscle group that you're trying to work. So it's a little bit different if you're using dumbbells, because in a situation of a dumbbell, you have complete and utter discrepancy of how far you take that range of motion. But in a seat, like this is as low as this comes down. And for some people, if I go all the way to the bottom, like this is not a good place to start lifting from because the range of motion is way too short. So like I'd be just, doop, like that's not far enough. So you want to make sure that the muscle group that you're targeting is able to achieve full range of motion if possible for, I guess, the most efficient set. So come off out of my high chair. Oh my God, I got stuck. So that's probably a little bit high. See how now I've got like an open hip angle if I was to, come around here, Mo. So see here in this high position, see how I'm not sitting at a right angle anymore. It's a little bit above that. So I'm gonna come down. Like this is good for me. I can dig my feet into the floor, I'm grounded, and now I can brace correctly, all those good things. It slightly compromises my range of motion, but I would rather that and have to do a few more reps than sit in an uncomfortable position. Who here has had shoulder injuries? Everybody in the gym raise their hands. Yes. So if you're like me and you get real competitive, usually you've just done it doing something stupid. So my shoulder injury came from having a stone throwing competition on the beach in California. Stupid. So, you know when you just pick up a stone, it's like who can throw the stone the furthest into the water? My friends are really competitive. So, didn't go down so well. I couldn't lift for 6 months. That's how bad my shoulders were. But anyhow, shoulder injuries, really common. Guys, you've got to rest if you have an injury like that. Now, I'm not a physical therapist and I don't claim to know anything or anywhere near as much information as a physical therapist does. However, I've worked with a lot. So do make sure that if you've got some kind of niggling, chronic, ongoing pain, get into your physio, find out what is wrong. Sometimes it'll be, different types of movement aggravated. It could be lateral, that if you press up and that hurts. For some people, it could be lifting up to your anterior. That could be the position that hurts. It could be pushing down. So you can start to identify or isolate which types of movements are causing you pain. And then that'll help in your program creation. So if you know that vertical pressing with your arms out wide is not something that works for you. However, if you come out on the 45 and maybe reduce the range of motion or lighten the load or slow the tempo, they're all perfectly appropriate ways to modify an exercise to get you out of pain. Then that is also an option. So get into your physio and then try experimenting with light loads, different angles, different tempo, those types of things, and also range of motion. I know when I've had hamstring injuries in the past, I was still able to perform RDL, but I would have to do it at like snail speed tempo, and I could still load it. Whereas if I tried to do a regular speed tempo and my normal load, I couldn't do it. It was too painful. But if we can get that pain back down to say a 2 or a 3 out of 10, that is really good. And then you can still train and move that muscle joint without all that muscle and keep it active rather than letting it waste away, which some people do. You'll see people, you know, they're injured and they just don't go to the gym. There are so many exercise variations that you should and could do. So if you are injured, make sure that you're not, you know, selling out and not going to the gym for a small injury that could be just worked around. Because then it's hard to get back into the momentum. If you've already been somebody that's struggled to be committed and consistent with the gym, you know, don't let something as little as that, like a tennis elbow or something with your right shoulder, limit you. So, yeah. Something else that you might like to do from occasion is just mix up your grip. So obviously we're doing a pronated or a wide grip overhead press. You can move to a neutral grip where your wrists are facing in, and that's just going to increase the use of your posterior delt. You know when like you look at other people's YouTube videos and everything's like flawless floating of hair, meanwhile mine gets caught in the mic and sticks onto my armpits. Like, yeah, that's me, guys. So anyway, that neutral grip is going to isolate a little bit more of your posterior shoulder. And with your programming, if you are somebody that's writing your own programs, don't forget to evenly distribute how you do your sessions as far as the muscle group selection. Unless you're really trying to grow one particular area, then sure, by all means, do as much front raises and neutral grip pressing as you like. But I know I neglected my rear delts in the first probably 3 years of my lifting career. And part of that was because we didn't have a machine and I was limited to a small gym. I used to work at Snap Fitness when I was like 18 as a personal trainer. And yeah, we didn't have a rear delt machine. And I guess I just forgot that that muscle existed. So I never trained rear delts. So it took me a few years to kind of get caught up. And then I over-programmed and kind of pulled back my medial and then my posterior delt a little bit so that I wasn't spending hours and hours in the gym. So if I had, for example, I don't know, let's say I would do 10 or 12 sets per week on my shoulders. I would previously just do medial and posterior, forgot about the rear. So then I started to do like 3, 3, 3, and maybe another 3 on my medial if that's muscle that I wanted to work. So yeah, don't forget to evenly distribute the load across each of your different areas of your shoulder, your deltoid. So we're going to move on to our back. This is a muscle group I care about way less. I used to train back so much, and I think over the course of 5 years I was able to shrink my back down from, I think it was like 3 or 4 centimeters. So I know that probably doesn't sound like a lot, but if you look back, or if I look back at some of my old figure pictures, like my lat spread was huge. It's funny, like I don't even recognize myself anymore. So anyway, I stopped training because I couldn't fit into women's clothing anymore and I didn't want to look like the Hulk. Sorry, but that was like 7 years of like hammering my upper body, and like 6 days a week, I never skipped a beat. So I think people that are worried about, you know, getting too muscular, it takes a lot. And typically the people that you see where you don't like their muscle mass, I can probably say 9 out of 10 chances are they're using anabolic steroids, they're a figure competitor, and they don't skip a beat, and they haven't skipped a beat for 10 years. So for most people, it takes so much to grow. In fact, I think recently, if you've read my new book, we talk a lot about, what are the realistic rates of muscle growth for a natural athlete? And it is very underwhelming, unfortunately. The average rates of muscle growth that we see for new to resistance trained and steady state resistance trained is about 0.2 to 0.3 of a centimetre per 8 to 12 weeks. So if you think about what that means for 24 weeks, we're looking at maybe 0.6. If we look to what a year accomplishment of muscle growth can achieve, we're looking at like 1.2 centimeters, which is the size of my little finger, not even my nail. So, I think people get really disheartened when they go through a 6-month build. And I've got clients right now that, they've just worked so hard and they haven't skipped a beat. They've been really, really dedicated and they've made, their training their number one priority. And then they come back and they'll do their cut and we don't get them quite to the point where they're really lean. So they've still got a little bit of body fat, and then because it's covering their muscle, they're so disappointed. And I'll have to remind them, look, this is what the data says. I mean, here's 25 studies, you can see it in my book, that shows you that this is what the average person achieves in a lab setting where every single rep is usually accounted for. They've got motivation and support, so they've basically got a little personal trainer, helping them, and they're going to failure. So it's a lot of work, and I encourage you to stay consistent because really that's where the gold lies. It's the people that get disheartened quickly and frustrated and then they kind of just throw the towel in. You won't get there because an appreciable amount of muscle takes a long time to build. So before someone takes my machine, I want to show you, these are my Versa grips. These are actually a new pair. They come in all colors, and I think a lot of people ask about them, but this is a Versa grip. So like I said, they have a couple of fancier versions. They have, pink camo for the ladies. They've got all the colors. So I really like these in that you don't have to put them through loops. They're not like the figure 8 lifting straps where you've got to feed them in and you got to look at them and make sure that they're facing the right way. And then, some of them are quite hard to do if you haven't been in the gym for very long. So these are easy in that they just loop over. You put your hand in and then you do the strap up. So it's just got Velcro. So that just sits here like this. And then anything that you grab, this goes around the barbell and you lock your fingers in like so. So that is what you're doing. And it basically eliminates the need for you to really rely on your grip. So people at my old gyms, unless you train without anything or you're using chalk, you were cheating. Now, I get that logic for powerlifting, and it was usually the really arrogant, loud powerlifters that would say that. And the reality is, if you're training for hypertrophy, then what is going to be the limiting factor of any lift that is bigger than the muscles in your, the limiting factor is going to be the small muscles in your hands and in your grip strength. I can tell you that my back muscles, my lats, my legs, my hamstrings, anything, they are going to succeed the power and strength and force that my hands can generate. So what happens is, as you get stronger, as you've been lifting for a little while, let's say, for this particular machine, I started off with, 50 pounds or 70 pounds. And progressively, my back muscles are getting stronger and maybe they're growing. If I wasn't using wraps and I hadn't been doing specific grip work, there's going to be a point where my back muscles will be able to handle more weight, but my grip won't. So you might be training and you're getting to what you think is failure, but it's not your back failure, it's your hand failure. So are you really training to failure? No. So you want to use wraps if your primary goal is muscle growth. All right. I'm just gonna do a quick warm up because I haven't trained my back today. Just do 5 reps, 50% of my intended working set. So you can see here, I have wrapped around the grip, and I want that as tight as I possibly can. So it's pretty locked in there. Same on this side. Yeah. So when I just wrap my fingers around now, I'm pretty locked in. Oh, okay. So if you have a really limited number of equipment at the location that you're training at, and you're just tired of doing the same thing, something that I do quite a bit is play around with tempos, partials, all those kinds of things. Single arm, so unilateral movements, bilateral movements. But again, you might see me program something like a 1.5 rep pull down, which I'll do a set of this now. It is, again, we talked about muscle length, right? So if I train a partial where I come all the way down, so that's a full range, but then I only come back up halfway, so that's a partial rep, and then back down. I will be able to do more partials than I will full range of motion, because I'm in a more ergonomical, like strong position. If you think about this like doing a bicep curl, what is the hardest part of that movement? The hardest part of the movement is when you've got your muscle completely lengthened. Whereas if I take a 60-pound dumbbell, I can probably hold it here for a long time and slowly maybe let it out. I'd probably fall, actually, probably drop it. But this is where I'm strongest. This is where I am weakest. So by doing a partial range of motion for like a pull down, you're working in a stronger, like, I guess, you've got a stronger lever. So naturally, you're just gonna have to do more reps if you decided to do partials. So me doing like a 1.5, there is nothing magic about that. It is just another variation because I'm bored out of my brains. I've been doing the same thing for such a long time. And it just gives me a little bit of exercise diversity. And I won't be able to do the same number of reps. So like, let's say I do normally 10 reps of this wide grip pull down at, I don't know, 115 pounds or 120 pounds. I couldn't do 10 reps of 1.5s. So that would be all the way down, halfway out, back in, and then lengthens. Because number one, it's more time under tension, and I'm going to get fatigued pretty quickly, which is a good thing. But you will notice that you have to drop your load down a little bit when you're doing any of those kind of partial rep ranges. It could be quarter reps, pulse reps, half reps, those types of things. Next up, I'm going to do a chest exercise. Again, this is obviously a plate loaded machine, but most hotel gyms, apartment complex gyms will have some kind of machine chest press. Again, same rule applies. If you can find a seat position that allows your feet to sit and be planted firmly on the ground, obviously that is ideal. However, as I have tested this one, my feet are dangling up in the air like a kid. So it's actually just going to challenge your core a whole lot more. So I've just done a warm-up set here. Again, about 50% of the load that I know I'm going to work with for the set rep range. And because my feet are dangling and I can't really ground myself, it just means that you really have to think about engaging your core. So you are not going to be as strong as if you had a grounded foot position. And I've talked about this a little bit before too with other exercises. like an overhead shoulder press. So most often I'll do my shoulder press with the dumbbells in a chair that supports my back. So again, you can lean into it, you can support yourself, and it allows you to lift a heavier weight. However, take that chair away, and I would encourage you to do that from time to time just to challenge your core stability. So I'm going to do that today with this. I'm going to have my feet just dangling like a child. And I'm also not a child in that I have like athletic fingers, so completely the opposite. So one of my knuckles, come take a look at this. So like this knuckle here, this bone, it's like calcified. It's so chunky compared to this one, if you look at the difference in my knuckle thickness. So this is just early warning signs or early signs of aging. My dad actually has really bad arthritis, and probably in the last couple of years I have noticed that my joints, especially my wrists when I'm doing pressing, especially bench press, or anything that keeps my wrist in a fixed plane of motion where I don't get to kind of support it, really challenges it. In fact, it can be the limiting factor. So for that reason, I always carry straps. So if you don't have straps, you don't have to get these. These are 18-inch long. It's ridiculous. You don't need that much. Actually, they're probably more than that, 24. You can get shorter ones that are 12-inch, like this. Perfectly fine. You just don't have to do as many loops. So basically, when you put these on, you want to get that first stretchy, that first wrap really tight. So I kind of hold it with my fingers, and then I put it over my wrist joint. So again, that's really firm. With every wrap, I want to get it tighter and tighter. And I'm going over my joint. I'm not wrapping at the base. And now, like, I can't really bend my wrist, see? So that just gives me some support. It's great for power. You can use these in professional powerlifting sports. They do use them for that reason. It's just safer. So safety first. If you want to have healthy, happy joints as you get into your 30s, God, I would never have thought that I'd have joint issues in my 30s. Yeah, wear wraps. So it should feel like you're cutting your circulation off. Like I'm getting like white knuckles right now. So that's what you want, folks. When you take these off, it's like, ah, yeah, literally white knuckling it. So as you can see, my feet don't touch the ground. So this is definitely going to challenge my core. Yeah, that was a good set. I don't know why, but I really love chest training. All right, lucky last for today is rear delts. Told you we'd come back to those. So again, if you're fortunate enough to have a pec deck, which also allows you to spin around and change your chest, it's great. This would be a piece of equipment I would have in my home gym, just because it's so diverse. So obviously targeting the rear delt, your posterior deltoid in this exercise. This is one of the muscle groups that I struggled to connect with the most for the longest time. And I think, you know, back in the day when I first started training, I probably had way too big of an ego, or I was so focused on progressive overload, getting stronger, like I had to try and, you know, lift more every session that I'd get in the gym. And ultimately what was happening was I could lift more weight, but it was not my rear delts that were lifting that weight. It was my traps, it was my neck, it was everything but or my rear delts. So I've actually really lightened back the load quite a bit, and specifically on any rear delt exercises, and just my shoulders in general, especially for lateral raises. And I will opt to do higher rep ranges, so 20 rep ranges. 20 reps is typically what I shoot for, 15 to 20. and I'm really focusing on my muscle connection. And there are several studies that show that when you are able to focus on actually connecting with the muscle, that you do get greater hypertrophy outcomes. I think a really extreme example of this would be like coming into the gym, you've just gotten the worst news of your life. And if you're in the gym, you're here, you showed up, which is great, that's half the battle for a lot of us, but we're completely disengaged, we're distracted, we can't focus, and we're just going through the motions. So there's really not a lot of thought given to, you know, how effectively you are training the intended muscle. So for me, this is one where I'm guessing I don't have a whole lot of nerves back there because I really don't feel my rear delts, and it, you know, even to get a good burn, it just doesn't happen that often. So it is possible with higher reps. And I feel like for me to know whether I'm training effectively with a heavy load, I end up being uncertain of whether or not my rear delts are actually doing the work and it's not my traps. So for this one, again, I would encourage you to explore, play around with different seated positions. So I usually do a combination of like sitting up tall, where I'm in this position, going through the motion again, suppressing my lats, driving out wide, and I'm just going to go to parallel. You don't need to go all the way back here and hyperextend. Just getting to here will fully activate your rear delts. And then I'll also do a set where I'm kind of more forward leaning, and it's just kind of working through each different portion of your muscle here. So I try to do that, or if I do one set 1 week in the forward leaning position, then on my other day when I have rear delts, I might do the up tall position, just so that I'm getting a little bit more diversity and specificity. So I'm going to go ahead and do this set, and you're going to see me doing it really slow because I'm trying to get in that muscle with my mind. You'll also notice I don't really let it come back down and touch. So I'm keeping constant tension. So I'm not crashing it back down here. I keep it on, so my shoulders are still working in this position, and it's quite tough. I would almost be done. So this session, I could confidently say, if you want to superset these movements, probably with the exception of the leg press that we did at the beginning, you could do that. Ultimately, again, I have posted about rest as well. You know, what's the optimal rest period for hypertrophy? I talk a lot about this in my book as well. There's a full 15-page chapter, all of the studies. I break it down for you in the most simple way known to man, and really go through the science. So rest periods is another interesting topic. For strength-specific sports, 3 to 5 minutes or more, go for it. Enjoy spending 5 hours at the gym. Most of us don't have that kind of time. So what's the effective rep range for hypertrophy? Anywhere from 60 seconds up to 2 minutes. That's an efficient way to train. However, if you think about it, I want to do some math. I'm going to grab my phone for you. I'm going to add it up and tell you for how many exercises you do and how many sets, how many minutes you're actually resting if you trained like a power lifter. It's very inefficient use of time. Alrighty, so let's say you have 8 exercises in your training session and you're going to be doing 3 sets per exercise. So you've got 24 sets for that session. If you rest, let's say 3 minutes for each exercise, which is what some people try and make you do, let's just see what that actually comes out to be. So times, let's go 180 seconds. So 4,320 seconds divided by 60. So you would be resting for 72 minutes in that workout. So that's insane. 72 minutes for your rest versus if you're doing 8 times 24. And the set probably only takes you, hang on, let me see. So 24 sets times, let's say it takes 45 seconds. versus 18 minutes of work. Like, that's crazy. So you don't need to rest that long. It's not necessary. What will happen, and the volume advocates or the people that subscribe to more is better, you know, there's a lot of people that are really pushing, you know, 5 working sets is what you've got to do. There's linear increases. And again, I talk about this in my book. The research lab that published the recent study that was 1 set, 3 sets, and 5 sets, and we're able to demonstrate that the 5-group set had significantly greater muscle growth over I think it was an 8-week study intervention. If you actually look at the data, and if you're familiar with all the other data, you would then look at those numbers and question them quite a bit. So earlier I talked about the normal rates of muscle growth being about 0.2 to 0.3 centimeters, and that is pretty consistent across probably 30 studies. Now, this particular research lab were able to show 0.7 of a centimeter of muscle growth in the 5-group set. I think it was 0.5 or so for the 3-group set. So it is still almost 2 and 3 times the magnitude of muscle growth than every other study. And the only other studies that we can compare to that have that kind of muscle growth the people are on anabolic steroids, or the papers have been retracted for fraudulent data. Now, I'm not saying that this data is fraudulent, but I am saying it's unusual. It's an extraordinary result or finding. And I think it's really important to consider, you know, why could that be? My theory is that in the 5-group set, so people are coming in and they're doing a lot of volume. That's tons. I've done that once in my life and I was crippled for like 6 months. But I think what they're capturing, maybe in their B-mode ultrasound, which is how they measure muscle thickness, is swelling. They're not giving that participant enough time for the swelling to go down, or that fluid retention, that acute inflammatory response to training. And what they're capturing isn't actually just muscle thickness increases. It's all of that. So that's one plausible theory that I think could stand true. Now, there's another research lab here in Florida that are actually doing the same study just to see if they can replicate the results, because it is extraordinary with the findings that they have. So I'm still of the camp that says 3 sets is enough. I don't think that we need to do 5 sets. I think that the studies just aren't, there's not enough of them, at least that support, you know, the 2 particular papers that I'm thinking of that have had really crazy results. Okay guys, so to bring it all back to rest time, ultimately that rest time is just allowing you to recover. So technically, if you rest for a longer period of time, yes, you might be able to lift more weight and accrue more volume, but ultimately what is driving muscle growth is proximity to failure. So having a shortened rest time just means that that muscle, as you go back to do that next set, might still be unrecovered, and you're going to get to fatigue much faster. You're going to have to, you know, your muscle is going to be very tired. So as long as you aren't compromising your rep number. So an example might be if you're doing sets of 12, for instance, and you rest, let's say you've only rested for 30 seconds. Now that wouldn't be an adequate recovery, because what would happen is if you'd start again, what you'd find is you'd probably only be able to do 5 or 6 reps. Now that's not the most effective rep range for muscle growth. So if your subsequent training sets, the subsequent set number is causing you to reduce your reps down to 4 or 5, and you're not getting that hypertrophy rep range, so 8 reps or above, then you probably do need to rest a little bit longer. But supersetting for that reason is fine. I just don't like puffing very much. And I've done so much HIIT cardio in my life that I'm like, you know what, if I'm allowed to rest, great. I'm gonna rest and get my heart rate back down to less than 100. And you'll have heard me say that in all my old training videos. I enjoy training that way. I don't wanna sweat, I don't wanna have to rush, I wanna take my time. I obviously don't have as much time anymore, so I am kind of gravitating back more now towards supersetting, because I have a limited time, I wanna get in and out, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, again, if your goal is primarily hypertrophy. So I know that we just talked about 5 different topics. We covered volume, we covered rest periods. but I think that they do kind of link in together, and I hope that that explanation helps. And if you've still got questions about it, please, by all means, leave me a comment, send me a DM, email me, all those good things. Alrighty guys, so as I mentioned at the beginning, obviously I'm getting really old and I'm really sore all the time. Part of that is just the inconsistency of training. So for anybody that consistently gets sore, just consider for a moment that it's probably because you aren't showing up to the gym consistently enough. So when I only have, 2 or 3 days in the gym, and that's been the case a lot lately for me, I just expect that I'm going to be sore, and rather than let that send me into this defeatist mentality and I just decide not to go again because I'm too sore, what I do end up doing is I come in and I am just considerate of my body. I'm listening to how I'm feeling, and I'm probably not going to be hitting PRs in the subsequent training sessions, but getting in and still working is better than not coming at all. And again, thinking about what is required to achieve results long term is that consistency. You don't have to train to failure every time you come into the gym. You can come in, hit an RPE 7. Like I've done, I'd say all of 2023 for me has been consistent training at a 7. So, I might not be making crazy gains, but at least I'm here. And there's no reason why you can't train when you are sore. In fact, I'll have a lot of people ask about, some of our training programs are, 5, or an advanced training program might be 6 days a week, and there's multiple days of like lower body. Obviously that was a primary group that I was focusing on for a really long time. And they'll say, well, what about recovery? Okay, so in the ideal world, yes, we would want to recover for 36 to 48 hours after you've trained a muscle group. However, if you don't have the luxury of being able to skip a day and completely rest because you don't have any other days left to come into the gym. So if it's the only time that you can get into the gym, and if it's Monday to Friday, then I think that it's still appropriate to come in and train that same muscle group again the next day. I would say try to structure the program in such a way that it's lower body, lower, upper. But you can also isolate specific muscle groups. So if one of my training programs is all legs, it might be that it's primarily glutes and hamstrings one session. And then you might be coming back in and you see lower body again. And you're like, oh my God, how can she train again? We just did legs yesterday. But it's actually now a quad focused program. And then I might have an upper. And then we might go to a very specific like glute program on the following days. So I do try to put a lot of attention and focus towards how I'm programming, because when you've been doing this for a long time, you want to make sure that it's perfect or as close to that as possible. But you can still come in, you can still train, even if you're feeling a little bit sore. But I will say, I don't want you to injure yourself. So if you performing an RDL is putting you on the brink of tears and you can barely walk, don't come to the gym. Take the time off, let yourself recover. But eventually, what might have felt like, an RPE 11, and it was really hard and you were pulling up really sore every single training session, the great thing is your body adapts. You get used to it. When I first started training, you could not have paid me enough to do like 4 lower body training sessions in a week. But I worked up to our glutes and our Get Lean and Train With Me program. So that is 4 lower body days and then 1 upper body day. And eventually, I had adapted to that. It was hard, yes, it was challenging, but eventually, that's just where you can progress to. So if one of the programs that you're doing doesn't feel like it's ever going to be easy, just, stick with it, be patient, take recovery when you need. And I think patience is really the key word there. You've got to be considerate of the time that it takes to get to this goal. And I think a lot of people tend to compare themselves to their favorite, online influencer. I have one client in particular that I'm thinking of, and she's been with me now for coming up to 2 years. But about 6 weeks prior to working with me, she'd done one online resistance training program with another online coach, and that was the first time she'd ever been into the gym. And she still compares herself to like these physiques, and I'm like, girl, they've been doing this for 10 years. They've got all of that time growing muscle, doing the building phases, cutting down. Like what you're seeing is the end result of years of work. So, you know, that building process takes time. You've got to be able to commit to the time it takes to put muscle on your body, or you're going to go back and forth and oscillate between the same 5 or 10 pounds over and over and over again. So if there's one thing that I can say when it comes to, you know, getting to the physique that you want, it's have some patience, try not to rush it, and you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Nothing that's worth having is easy, I can tell you that. Whether it's the most muscle in the world, you know, we look at some of the most impressive bodybuilders, not easy, versus being the most lean, shredded, like also not easy. So you have to have the mindset, the consistency, the patience more than anything, and the willingness to put yourself out of your comfort zone. And for a lot of ladies, that's the building phase, and you've got to be able to embrace that, or you are going to effectively double the amount of time that it takes for you to get to your ultimate goal. Because if you're worried about putting on a little bit of body fat, then, and you're trying to do this at maintenance, or you're trying to, you know, lose body fat and build muscle at the same time, it is just not as effective. So if there's one thing I can share with you guys today, and to wrap this video up, and it's a lesson that I've learned, you know, I wish that I could have gone back and told my younger self this information. It would be, stop worrying about cutting, just build for as many years as you need to get the muscle, and then when you are ready and you feel like you've acquired the shape that you need, then cut. Because that is the most direct way to getting the ultimate shape. Then you've just got to do the cut to get rid of the body fat. Whereas if you continuously do a little build, and then you spend 8 weeks cutting, and then you spend another 10 weeks cutting, every time you diet, let's say combined for the year you're dieting for half of the year, that is 6 months you are not making progress towards your ultimate goal. So you've just added 6 months because of our vanity of wanting to be a bit leaner. So if you had have just sat with the discomfort, stayed at a high body fat percentage and worked through, toughed it out, you would be there at your end goal so much faster. But so many people don't want to sit with that, you know, little bit of extra body fat. And I've been there. Like, I had an eating disorder for 15 years. So like now I can say, come full circle, like, God, I wish I had got the support I needed when I was 18. And I wish that I had have, you know, listened to somebody that has been there and done it, and like learn from people's mistakes. Like, that's the fastest way to success, right? Whether it's business, our health goals, financial, you name it. So anyways, I've talked enough. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that today's video was helpful. If you liked this video and you want to learn more or see more videos like this, remember to go and check out my YouTube channel. All of those videos are available for you to watch. There's so much good little golden nuggets on my channel. Please subscribe if you're not a subscriber. I post weekly educational content, training, nutrition, exercise science, life updates. I'm going to start those again here soon. And then we've also got all of our, I guess, coaching, our merchandise, our products, our services, my new training apps coming up soon, and we've got challenges starting here in just a few weeks as well. So if you would like any more details about any of the products and services that me and my team offer, please take a look at the description. All of those links are available for you, and I will see you at my next video. Thanks guys, appreciate you watching.